Hi, my name is Alexei, and this is my new vlog. In today's vlog, I want to talk about street photography. Photography is a passion of mine, and the genre of street photography had an enormous influence on my approach to this passion. What is street photography? Street photography is a genre of photography that records everyday life in a public space. This means that photography does not have to take place on a street per se, but generally outside of your house, be it on a street, on the beach, in the countryside, or on a train. The very publicness of the setting enables the photographer to take candid captures of life, candid pictures of strangers, often without their knowledge. Street photographers do not necessarily have a social purpose in mind, but they prefer to isolate and capture moments which might otherwise go unnoticed. How did I find my way to the street photography? More than 10 years ago, when I started photography while traveling, I noticed that I had also fun capturing strangers accidentally walking into the frame. But these were mere snapshots, with no deliberate intention behind. A couple of years later, I entered a photography course in Stuttgart and started to learn photography basics. In this time, I stumbled by chance upon the works of Cartier-Bresson, a French photographer who was famous for his street photography. His photos made a huge impression on me. While discussing his work, Cartier-Bresson coined the phrase "the decisive moment," which resonates particularly well with a street photographer's aim, taking advantage of that split second in which the elements of a photograph come together with clarity. Namely, you discover and capture something extraordinary in the midst of ordinary. In the decisive moment, you discover the art the life is presenting, and you capture it. It is fascinating. Anyway, Henri Cartier-Bresson took photos for more than half a century and influenced a generation of photographers, including my humble self, to trust their eye and intuition in the moment. The photographic works of Cartier-Bresson opened the world of street photography to me and led me to other masters of the genre, like for example to André Kertész, a Hungarian-born American photographer, a contemporary of Cartier-Bresson. Or to our contemporary, a Russian photographer from St. Petersburg called Alexandra Petrosyan, of whom I am a big fan and whom I also follow on Instagram. It is a point for discussion if street photography always has to capture people in public places. Not necessarily. Traces of people, like for example a lost hat or a broken head of a Buddha figure, can be also objects of street photography. But in my opinion, it is people who make street photography to what it is. It is people, and by the way, other animals as well, who breathe life and emotions onto a photo, telling different stories. However, on a good street photo, people do not only transmit emotions and tell stories, but also perform important composition functions, counterbalancing or enhancing something, contrasting or replicating something, dominating or being dominated by something, and so on. If a photo interests you and your eyes rest on it longer than usual, then there is a clearly defined subject. There is a story. A good street photo needs a clearly defined subject. All the rules of composition, such as rule of thirds, leading lines, use of negative space, symmetry, frames still hold. Bearing these rules in mind, street photographers tell stories with their images. Some of them who master these photographic rules might also successfully bend them. But composition rules are a solid starting point. At the beginning of this vlog, I told that the genre of street photography had an enormous influence on my approach to photography. Since it is very challenging, it demands a great amount of patience, as well as a relaxed and a positive attitude. You learn to become a discoverer with all the time in the world, because the decisive moment I have been talking about does not present itself on a golden plate with sufficient time to see, process, point and shoot. You have to be a discoverer with all the time in the world to experiment a lot and thus train your intuition. It is experience which leads to a better intuition and also your inner world, your knowledge. The more you deal with art, such as photos of other photographers or cinema or paintings, the more artistic and multi-layered your photos will become. Since people are an important subject of street photography, I also had to learn how to handle strangers. It is a challenging task for many of us, myself included. Those people on the streets are not your paying clients. They do not know who you are, and most of them do not wish to be photographed at all. How do I photograph them? Well, it depends on the situation. Sometimes I want to be noticed. I smile and then I approach that person. I chat a little first and then politely ask for a photo. If he or she does not want to be photographed, then I excuse myself and no harm is done. Generally, you may photograph strangers in public places in most countries, but it becomes a totally different story if you want to publish that photo. But I don't want to elaborate on this now. In other cases, I do not want to be noticed, since I want to capture people in their natural state. I might use a zoom lens in such a case. Or to make it more challenging, I use a wide-angle lens right in front of the subject, showing non-verbally that I am not interested in them, but in the amazing scenery in the background. Being bold pays off. People rarely confront me. They think that I photograph not them, but that what is behind them. Generally, being quick pays off. Yes, I have to think of composition, but here my intuition can help. Shoot first, think later. Not often, but sometimes, such spontaneous shots may bring surprises. When doing street photography, we have to think about its ethical side as well. It goes without saying that we have to be respectful to people we photograph. However, if I'm honest, there is sometimes a thin line between art, or let's call it impactful photojournalism on one side, and respect on the other. People in distress very likely will not want to be photographed. Would you want to if you were in their shoes? But the image may be much more than showing somebody in distress and have a high photojournalistic value. In my opinion, if the choice to take a photo is made, then you have to advocate for that choice in case of consequences. To sum up, street photography taught me patience and openness for experiments and surprises. On a photographic prowl outside, I have to have ready such camera settings that I can react quick and spontaneous. And I have to be relaxed and not obsessed. Botch the photo? No big deal. There will be plenty of opportunities. I love this creative process. Well, these were my thoughts on street photography. I hope it was interesting not only to hobby photographers, but to all others as well. As usual, please like, comment and share. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. Thank you for watching and see you next time.